The blaring alarms of Outpost Kepler pierced through the chaos as another wave of orbital bombardment shook the underground fortress. Emergency lights flashed crimson, casting eerie shadows across the reinforced corridors where frantic personnel scrambled to their stations. Debris rained from the ceiling as the structural integrity systems struggled to compensate for the relentless assault from above. Commander Henry Thorne stood unflinching at the central command hub, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. A former Special Forces operative with over 2 decades of combat experience. Henry had been handpicked to lead this critical outpost at the edge of human territory. His salt and pepper hair was cut military short, and a scar across his left cheek told stories of battles long past. Despite the mayhem surrounding him, his voice remained steady as he issued orders. "Aegis, give me a status report on our shield generators," he commanded, addressing the outpost's artificial intelligence. "Shield capacity at 37% and dropping, Commander," replied the AI's calm, feminine voice. "Bombardment patterns suggest this is not a standard assault, but a coordinated tactical strike aimed at our defense grid." Henry's eyes narrowed. "They're softening us up for something else. Marcus, get your teams to reinforce the north access points. I want those emergency power relays double protected." Lieutenant Marcus Kane nodded sharply before racing off, barking orders into his comms unit. A loyal officer who had served with Henry for years, Marcus understood the commander's instincts were rarely wrong. "Dr. Elena Vasquez to Command Center." Henry called over the general comm system. "We're going to have casualties soon." What none of them knew was that the bombardment was merely a distraction. The true threat had already infiltrated their defenses, moving silently through the maintenance shafts that honeycombed the outpost's infrastructure. Vessia adjusted her thermal vision as she navigated the narrow passageways. Her fox-like ears, enhanced with cybernetic implants, twitched at every sound, filtering out the distant explosions to focus on any signs of detection. The Empire's most elite assassin was a marvel of genetic engineering and technological enhancement. Her sleek body, covered in russet fur with cream markings, blended perfectly with the shadows. The kyber crystal implants along her spine glowed softly beneath her tactical armor, storing energy for her phase-shifting abilities. Born in the Empire's advanced genetic facilities, Vessia had been bred for one purpose: to eliminate high-value targets with maximum efficiency. She had never failed a mission. Commander Henry Thorne would be no exception. Her orders were explicit: infiltrate Outpost Kepler during the bombardment, eliminate its commander, and extract with confirmation of kill. The Empire considered Henry Thorne a significant threat, not just for his tactical brilliance, but for his growing influence in uniting human resistance against Imperial expansion. Vessia accessed the outpost schematic on her neural interface, identifying the quickest route to the command center. The glowing map projected directly onto her retina guided her through the labyrinth of service tunnels. She moved with fluid grace, her specialized boots making no sound as she approached a junction. Pausing, she detected human heartbeats beyond the service panel. 2 guards, their conversation barely audible through the metal. Never seen bombardment this heavy. Think they're finally making their push? If they do, they'll regret it. Commander Thorne has contingencies for everything. Vessia's whiskers twitched in amusement. No contingency for her. She waited until the guards moved on before continuing her approach. Within minutes, she had positioned herself in a maintenance shaft directly above the command center. Through the ventilation grate, she observed her target. Commander Henry Thorne stood tall among his officers, projecting confidence and control. Vessia studied him carefully, noting his movements, the way he carried himself, the respect his subordinates showed him. Her implants analyzed his vital signs: steady pulse, regulated breathing, minimal stress indicators despite the crisis. Impressive for a human. Her mission parameters echoed in her mind: eliminate the target with extreme prejudice, confirm kill, extract. With practiced precision, Vesia removed a panel from the ceiling and slipped into a shadowed corner of the command center undetected. The chaos of the bombardment provided perfect cover as she readied her plasma pistol. Calibrated for a clean kill shot, she aimed carefully at Henry's back, calculating trajectory and potential obstacles. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The first plasma bolt struck Henry's right shoulder, causing him to stagger forward. Personnel scattered in panic as Vesia emerged from the shadows, her weapon trained steadily on her target. Surprisingly, Henry didn't collapse. Instead, he turned slowly, his eyes immediately locking onto hers with unnerving precision, as if he'd been expecting her all along. Blood seeped through his uniform, but his expression remained calm, analytical. "Evacuate the command center," he ordered, his voice unwavering despite the wound. "Security Protocol 7. Now." Vesia fired again, but Henry had already moved, diving behind a console as staff scrambled for exits. The bolt missed, striking a display panel that exploded in a shower of sparks. Emergency blast doors began to close as the automated security systems responded to the threat. Henry rolled to his feet with surprising agility for a wounded man and dashed toward a side corridor. Vesia pursued, phasing through a closing blast door with a burst of energy from her Kyber implants. The phase shift left a momentary trail of blue light as her molecules realigned. "Interesting technology," Henry called out, his voice echoing down the corridor. "Empire's been busy improving their assassins." Vesia didn't respond to the taunt. Words were inefficient. Action was all that mattered. She tracked Henry through the winding service corridors, noting with growing curiosity how he moved with purpose rather than panic. Most targets ran desperately when confronted with an Imperial assassin. Henry seemed to be following a predetermined path. She caught sight of him rounding a corner and fired twice more. One bolt grazed his leg. The other burned across his back as he ducked into a narrow passage. That made 3 wounds, yet still he moved, leaving a trail of blood droplets that Vesia followed with predatory focus. The corridor opened into a maintenance hub, machines humming with activity. Henry stood at a control panel, breathing heavily but still functioning despite his injuries. Vesia raised her weapon. "Your persistence is admirable, Commander," she said, her voice carrying a slight mechanical undertone from her vocal enhancers. "But ultimately futile." Henry turned, his face pale from blood loss, but his eyes clear. "Is it? I'm curious. Did your superiors tell you why they want me dead so badly?" "Reasons are irrelevant. The mission is absolute." "Of course," Henry nodded. "That's what they engineered you to believe." His hand moved slightly, and Vesia fired instinctively, striking him in the upper chest. Henry grimaced but remained standing, his finger completing whatever command he'd initiated on the panel. Suddenly, steam erupted from pipes overhead, filling the room with a dense white cloud. Vesia's thermal vision activated automatically, but the steam created a uniform heat signature that obscured her target. She switched to motion tracking, detecting movement to her right. Advancing through the steam, she fired at the movement, only to realize too late it was Henry's discarded jacket. Propelled by a ventilation fan, the real Henry emerged behind her, striking with a shock baton that sent painful currents through her cybernetic systems. Vesia stumbled, momentarily disoriented as her implants reset. She spun around, lashing out with a kick that connected with Henry's wounded leg. He fell back, but managed to dodge her follow-up strike, rolling under a set of pipes and emerging on the other side of the room. "Aegis, execute defense pattern Theta in Sector 7, he commanded, activating his comms unit. Emergency bulkheads slammed down around the maintenance hub, sealing them both inside. Vessia realized he was isolating her, preventing her from reaching other parts of the outpost. A tactical move she hadn't anticipated. "Your wounds should have incapacitated you by now," she observed, circling cautiously. Human biology is typically more fragile. Henry managed a pained smile. "We're full of surprises. Your empire consistently underestimates our adaptability." He ducked behind a large power converter as Vessia fired again, the plasma bolt scorching the metal where his head had been seconds before. The confined space made the firefight dangerous for both of them, plasma bolts ricocheting off metal surfaces, equipment exploding from stray shots. Vessia tracked Henry's movements, noting how he used his environment strategically, always maintaining cover, leading her through a maze of machinery. Despite his injuries, now 4 distinct wounds, he moved with purpose, occasionally issuing quiet commands into his comms unit. Something didn't add up. Most humans would be in shock from such injuries, yet Henry fought with calculated precision. Vessia felt the first stirring of doubt about the simplicity of her mission. This wasn't just another target. This was a tactician using every resource at his disposal. "Your empire sent you here to die," Henry called out, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "You're just too engineered to realize it." The comment triggered something in Vessia, not anger, for she had been designed without such distracting emotions, but curiosity, a dangerous sentiment for an imperial assassin. "Elaborate," she demanded, scanning for his position. "Here, they sent one assassin, even one as enhanced as you, against an entire outpost," Henry replied from somewhere to her left. "They didn't expect success. They expected data on our defenses." Vessia spotted movement and fired twice more, catching Henry in the side as he dashed between cover. 6 wounds now, yet he remained functional, if slowing. Blood stained his uniform in multiple places, but his eyes retained their sharp focus. He collapsed behind a console, breathing heavily. Vessia approached cautiously, weapon trained on his position. As she rounded the console, Henry triggered a hidden mechanism. A panel in the floor opened beneath her, and Vessia found herself falling. She activated her phase shift instinctively, her body becoming momentarily intangible as she passed through the trap and rematerialized on solid ground. The effort drained her kyber reserves significantly, a resource she needed to manage carefully. Henry had anticipated this, already moving toward an access ladder that led to upper maintenance levels. Vessia pursued, firing as she ran. Another hit to his back, another to his arm as he climbed. 8 wounds total, each leaving its mark in crimson against his dark uniform. The chase continued through the technical bowels of the outpost. Vessia began to recognize a pattern in Henry's movements. He wasn't just fleeing. He was systematically leading her through specific sections of the facility. Each wound she inflicted seemed to slow him, yet never quite enough to stop him. They emerged into a 3-way junction of alloy corridors. Vessia paused, her enhanced senses detecting multiple heartbeats nearby. An ambush. Henry had led her into a trap after all. "Now!" Henry shouted, and armed personnel appeared from concealed positions, opening fire. Vessia phase-shifted again, the energy bolts passing harmlessly through her translucent form. She countered with precise shots, dropping 2 security officers before they could adjust their aim. The rest scattered for cover as she solidified again. the kyber crystals along her spine dimming noticeably from the extended phase. Henry observed from behind reinforced barricade, noting the duration of her phase state. "Your shifting ability has limits," he called out. "Each use drains those crystals. How many shifts do you have left?" Vessia didn't respond, but he was right. Her implants reported energy reserves at 43%, sufficient for perhaps 2 more extended phase shifts before she would be vulnerable. She needed to end this quickly. The firefight intensified as more security personnel arrived. Vessia moved with blinding speed, her genetically enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge most incoming fire while returning deadly accurate shots. 3 more officers fell to her plasma bolts, but Henry remained protected behind multiple layers of cover, directing his forces with tactical precision despite his injuries. She caught glimpses of him moving between positions, noted how he winced with each movement, yet never faltered in his commands. 9 wounds now decorated his body, each a testament to his inexplicable endurance. Vessia found herself reluctantly impressed by this human's resilience. The battle pushed her back toward a heavy blast door, sensing an opportunity to regain control of the engagement. Vessia triggered her phase shift once more, passing through the solid metal into what appeared to be a geothermal processing station. Steam pipes lined the walls, and the air was thick with humidity and the smell of minerals. She expected to find herself alone, with time to regroup and plan her next move. Instead, Henry stood waiting for her, leaning against a control panel, his weapon raised. "Predictable," he said simply, and fired. The stun blast caught Vessia directly in the chest, overwhelming her neural systems. She collapsed, her muscles spasming as the electrical charge disrupted her cybernetic enhancements. Through blurred vision, she saw Henry approach, limping heavily, blood dripping from multiple wounds. "You've been monitored since you entered the outpost," he explained, keeping his distance despite her temporarily incapacitated state. "Every maintenance shaft, every corridor you passed through, we tracked your progress the entire time." Vessia fought against the paralysis, her enhanced physiology already working to neutralize the stun effects. "Impossible," she managed to say. "My stealth systems are impressive but not infallible." Henry finished. "We've been studying Imperial technology for years. Your phase shifting, your enhanced senses. We anticipated them all." As feeling returned to her limbs, Vessia assessed her options. Her weapon lay just beyond reach, and Henry, despite his wounds, maintained a tactical position between her and the exit. She noticed his hand pressing against his side, where blood seeped between his fingers from one of her plasma shots. "Why not kill me?" she asked, buying time as her systems recovered. Henry studied her with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. "Because you're valuable, not as an enemy, but as data. Every move you made, every capability you demonstrated has been recorded and analyzed." Vessia lunged suddenly, her reflexes returning. She rolled toward her weapon, but Henry was ready, firing another stun blast that she barely avoided. She grabbed her plasma pistol and took aim, firing a shot that struck Henry's thigh, his 10th wound. He staggered but remained upright, firing back with remarkable accuracy for someone who should have been in debilitating pain. Vessia dodged, using a series of steam pipes for cover as she circled the room. "Your wounds should have incapacitated you," she observed again, genuine confusion entering her voice. "No human endurance should allow you to function after so many plasma strikes." Henry's smile was grim. "Perhaps I'm not as human as I appear." The implication startled her. The Empire's propaganda always portrayed humans as inferior. unenhanced, reliant solely on crude technology rather than biological advancement. Yet, Henry moved with the determination of something more. Their deadly dance continued through the geothermal station. Vesia landed 3 more hits to Henry's shoulder, arm, and side, bringing the total to 13 wounds. Each impact produced a grunt of pain, a fresh bloom of blood, yet never the collapse she expected. As they maneuvered around the facility, Vesia began to notice subtle patterns in Henry's movements, how he ensured each wound was recorded by the outpost's surveillance systems, how he tested her responses to different tactical situations. With growing disquiet, she realized she wasn't hunting him. He was studying her. The revelation should have triggered her mission protection protocols, but instead, it awakened something unexpected: respect. This human had turned her assassination attempt into an intelligence-gathering operation of remarkable sophistication. Their confrontation reached its peak in the central processing chamber, where massive turbines harnessed the planet's geothermal energy. Steam filled the vast space, creating a misty battlefield punctuated by the red glow of emergency lighting. Henry stood on a raised platform, his uniform now more red than black from his wounds. Vesia positioned herself at the chamber's entrance, her kyber reserves critically low, her phase shifting no longer an option. 17, Henry said, his voice echoing over the rumble of machinery. What? Vesia called back, adjusting her grip on her weapon. 17 plasma wounds. That's what our models predicted would be required to gather sufficient data on your combat algorithms and physical capabilities. Vesia checked her weapon's charge indicator. 3 shots remaining. You allowed me to shoot you 17 times. For data. 16, actually, Henry corrected, gesturing to his blood-soaked body. We're still 1 short of the optimal sample size. The absurdity of the situation struck Vesia with unexpected force. This human had orchestrated his own repeated injury, risking death, all to gather intelligence on Imperial assassination protocols. The dedication to his cause was beyond anything her Imperial conditioning had prepared her for. Why tell me this now? She demanded. Henry's expression grew solemn. Because you need to understand what you're part of. The Empire didn't send you here to kill me. They sent you here as a technological demonstration, a field test of their latest assassin model. Your success or failure is irrelevant to them. Your equipment, not personnel. The words resonated with doubts Vesia had never acknowledged, questions that her conditioning had suppressed about her place in the Imperial hierarchy. She had always executed her missions with perfect efficiency, never questioning the underlying purpose. You're attempting psychological manipulation, she stated, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. I'm offering perspective, Henry replied. The Empire creates weapons like you, genetically perfect, technologically enhanced, then discards them when newer models become available. Humans fight because we choose to, because we believe in something greater than ourselves. What do you believe in? Vesia. The use of her designation startled her. How do you know my identifier? We've intercepted enough Imperial communications to learn about their top assassins. Your reputation precedes you. A distant explosion rocked the facility, reminding them both that the orbital bombardment continued above. Vesia calculated her options, her highly analytical mind processing Henry's claims against her Imperial conditioning. 1 more shot, Henry said, straightening despite his wounds. Complete your dataset, then make your choice. He stepped forward, arms slightly spread, offering himself as a target, a test, not of her accuracy, but of her autonomy. Vesia raised her weapon, aiming at Henry's chest. Her targeting systems locked on, calculating the optimal point of impact for a kill shot. Her finger tightened on the trigger, In that moment, images flashed through her mind, her creation in Imperial laboratories, her training that emphasized obedience above all, missions where she had eliminated targets without question. Then Henry's words echoed, "Your equipment, not personnel." She fired. The plasma bolt struck Henry in the shoulder, his 17th wound, causing him to stumble backward. He fell to one knee, clutching the fresh injury. His face contorted in pain. Vessia lowered her weapon, then spoke clearly. "Target neutralized. Mission complete." Her words echoed through the chamber, recorded by the outpost's surveillance systems that would undoubtedly transmit to Imperial monitors. To any observer, it would appear she had finally incapacitated her target. But Henry still lived, and they both knew it. Vessia approached cautiously, kneeling beside the wounded commander. "Your medical facilities," she said quietly. "Where?" Surprise flickered across Henry's pain-etched features. "Level 3, East Quadrant. But we won't make it through standard corridors. Too many personnel." "I didn't navigate your ventilation system for entertainment," Vessia replied, slinging Henry's arm over her shoulder and helping him to his feet. "Show me the maintenance access points." Henry directed her to a service panel hidden behind a turbine housing. As Vessia helped him into the narrow passage, he asked, "Why?" She paused, her fox-like features unreadable in the dim light. 17 wounds provided sufficient data to form my own conclusions. Together they navigated the maintenance tunnels, Vessia supporting much of Henry's weight as blood loss finally began to take its toll. His breathing grew labored, his skin pallid beneath the smears of blood and grime. "There's a medical kit at the next junction." Henry managed between pained breaths. "Emergency supplies." Vessia located the wall-mounted container and administered battlefield stimulants and coagulants that temporarily stabilized Henry's condition. Her hands, designed for killing, now worked with surprising gentleness to dress the worst of his wounds. "The Empire will know of your defection," Henry warned as she secured a pressure bandage over the plasma burn on his thigh. "They'll receive confirmation of your neutralization." Vessia countered, "By the time they discover otherwise, it will be too late." They continued their slow progress through the maintenance system, avoiding security teams still searching for the Imperial assassin. Henry's strength was fading, but his mind remained sharp. "There's a reason they wanted me eliminated," he said during a brief rest. "Project Prometheus." Vessia's ears perked up. "I'm not familiar with this designation." "It's not in Imperial databases. It's a human Empire hybrid defense system, technology we've salvaged from Imperial vessels combined with human ingenuity, designed specifically to counter your fleet's advantages." Understanding dawned on Vessia. "The bombardment isn't just a distraction for my infiltration. It's preparation for a full invasion." Henry nodded grimly. "The first wave of dropships will launch once they believe the command structure has been destabilized, with me eliminated. They expect minimal coordinated resistance." They reached a maintenance hatch that Henry indicated would lead them to the medical facility. Before opening it, Vessia turned to him, her expression resolute. "Can your Project Prometheus repel the invasion force?" "With proper activation and targeting, yes. But it requires command authorization and precise coordination. Then we must ensure you survive to provide it." Vessia stated simply. They emerged into a quiet corridor adjacent to the medical bay. Dr. Elena Vasquez was alone inside, organizing emergency supplies. She whirled around as they entered, her eyes widening at the sight of the blood-soaked commander supported by what was clearly an Imperial assassin. "Commander, what?" "No time for explanations." "Doctor." Henry interrupted. I need emergency treatment and a secure communication line to Central Command. To her credit, Dr. Vasquez hesitated only momentarily before switching to professional mode. Get him on the table, she instructed Vesia, already preparing treatment equipment. As the doctor worked to stabilize Henry, administering regenerative compounds and sealing the worst of the plasma burns, Vesia stood guard at the door, her acute hearing monitoring for approaching personnel. Your vital signs are critical, Dr. Vasquez told Henry as she examined her medical scanner. 17 distinct plasma wounds. You should be dead. Fortunately, your experimental endurance enhancements worked better than expected, Henry replied weakly. Vesia's ears twitched at this new information. You're enhanced. Henry managed a faint smile. I told you I might not be as human as I appear. Experimental medical procedures designed to increase resistance to Imperial weapons. I volunteered as the test subject. That's why you could sustain so many injuries. Vesia realized. You made yourself into living research. We use every advantage we can find, Henry confirmed as Dr. Vasquez administered another round of treatments. Now, Doctor, I need that secure line. Dr. Vasquez brought a specialized communication unit to the treatment table. Henry's blood-stained fingers tapped in an authorization code, and a moment later, a holographic display materialized above the device. Commander Thorne to Central Command. Authentication code. Sierra Echo. Victor Echo. November. Activate Project Prometheus. Authorization Thorne 117. A brief pause, then a voice responded. Authentication confirmed. Project Prometheus activation sequence initiated. Targeting parameters. Henry glanced at Vesia. Care to provide the exact coordinates of the Imperial invasion fleet? Without hesitation, Vesia stepped forward and interfaced with the communication unit, uploading tactical data from her neural implants. Uploading deployment patterns, shield configurations, and hull vulnerabilities. She stated, optimal targeting solutions highlighted. The voice from Central Command hesitated. Commander, we're detecting Imperial data signatures in this transmission. Confirm security status. Security code Jericho. Henry replied firmly. The asset is now allied. Proceed with deployment. Understood. Project Prometheus deploying in 3 minutes. All outposts brace for potential counterattack. As Dr. Vasquez continued treatment, Henry explained to Vesia, Prometheus consists of modified Imperial phase technology adapted into missiles. They'll pass directly through your fleet's shields before rematerializing inside the hulls. Similar to my phase shifting, Vesia noted. Inspired by it, Henry confirmed. We've been studying Imperial assassins for years, adapting your technology to our purposes. The next few minutes passed in tense silence. Then the communication unit chimed. Project Prometheus deployment successful. Confirming 17 direct hits on capital ships and 23 on support vessels. Imperial fleet in disarray and beginning retreat. Repeat. Enemy forces retreating from orbit. Relief washed over Henry's features as Dr. Vasquez administered another round of regenerative treatment. Casualties? He asked. Minimal. Early warning systems functioned as designed, and most personnel reached shelters before bombardment intensified. Henry nodded, then turned to Vesia. Your former employers will know of your defection soon. They already suspect, she replied. My neural implant was designed to transmit mission status. I disabled it after entering your outpost, which will have triggered automated alerts. Can they track you? Vesia shook her head. Not without active transmission, but they will send others once they realize I've switched allegiance. Henry's expression hardened. Then we need to prepare. Doctor, how soon can I return to duty? Dr. Vasquez frowned. With the regenerative treatments, the worst damage will heal within days, but full recovery will take weeks. You lost a dangerous amount of blood. Commander, we may not have weeks, Vesia interjected. The Empire does not tolerate failure or betrayal. They will send more assassins, more advanced than me. Henry struggled to sit up, wincing at the movement. Then we'll need your knowledge of Imperial protocols and technology more than ever. Vesia considered this, her genetically engineered mind rapidly processing the implications of her choice. She had been created to serve the Empire without question, designed for perfect obedience. Yet, here she stood, having made a decision based on something the Empire had never accounted for, respect for an adversary who had earned it through courage and intelligence rather than domination. I will provide all tactical information at my disposal. She agreed. But understand that my knowledge has limitations. The Empire compartmentalizes intelligence, even among its elite assets. It's a start, Henry said, extending his hand, a human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Vesia took it, her clawed fingers careful against his injured hand. Dr. Vasquez watched the exchange with cautious optimism. I'll inform Lieutenant Kane that you're stable but need recovery time. He can coordinate immediate security responses while you heal. As the doctor stepped away to make the call, Henry looked at Vesia with renewed intensity. The Empire believes you've completed your mission. We should use that to our advantage while we can. A deception operation. Vesia nodded. Let them believe you're eliminated and the outpost vulnerable. Exactly. When they send their next wave, they'll find a very different reception than they expect. For the first time since her creation, Vesia felt something like anticipation that wasn't tied to a mission parameter. This was different, a choice made freely, a path forged through her own decision rather than Imperial programming. I've never worked with humans before, she admitted. Our methods will differ significantly. Henry's smile was tired but genuine. Adaptation is what humans do best. Between your Imperial training and our human unpredictability, we'll create something the Empire hasn't prepared for. 3 months later, Vesia stood at the reinforced viewpoint of Outpost Kepler's new Defense Command Center, watching as construction drones completed work on the enhanced shield generators. Beside her, Commander Henry Thorne reviewed performance reports on a holographic display, the scars from his 17 wounds visible along his exposed forearms, badges of honor he wore without complaint. The past months had brought waves of Imperial probing attacks, each one repelled with increasingly effective countermeasures that combined Vesia's intimate knowledge of Imperial tactics with Henry's strategic brilliance. Word had spread throughout the sector of the unprecedented alliance, the Empire's perfect assassin now fighting alongside those she had been created to destroy. Other Imperial assets had begun to question their programming, their purpose. Some had defected, bringing valuable intelligence and capabilities to the human resistance. The Empire, facing unprecedented challenges to its authority, had been forced to pull back from several planned offensives to reassess its strategy. Latest intelligence reports suggest they're developing new assassination protocols, Henry commented, scrolling through encrypted data feeds, specifically designed to counter your knowledge of their systems. Vesia nodded, unsurprised. They will adapt, as we have, but their fundamental weakness remains. They value control over initiative, obedience over innovation. While we now have both, Henry agreed. Closing the holographic display, the movement pulled at one of his healing wounds, and he winced slightly. Vesia noticed, but didn't comment. Henry's pride was something she had come to understand and respect, another concept alien to Imperial thinking, where genetic and technological superiority were the only measures of worth. The hybrid defense grid will be fully operational within 48 hours. She reported instead, "The integration of Imperial Phase technology with your quantum barrier systems has produced capabilities beyond my initial calculations. That's what happens when different perspectives combine," Henry said, moving to stand beside her at the viewpoint. Below them, human and former Imperial personnel worked side by side, each contributing unique skills to the outpost's defenses. "The Empire created me to be perfect." Vessia reflected, her fox-like features contemplative in the artificial light. They did not understand that true perfection requires choice, requires meaning beyond mere function. Henry studied her profile, noting how much she had changed from the coldly efficient assassin who had shot him 17 times. She still maintained her lethal precision, her enhanced capabilities, but now those gifts served a purpose she had chosen. "What will you do when this conflict eventually ends?" he asked. Vessia's ears twitched in thought, her genetically engineered mind considering possibilities that had never been part of her design parameters. "I do not know," she admitted finally. "But for the first time, the uncertainty does not seem like a system failure. It feels like potential." Henry nodded, understanding perfectly. "That's the most human thing you've ever said." Together they turned back to the work at hand, preparing defenses, training personnel, building something unprecedented, a future where former enemies could forge not just an alliance, but perhaps, in time, something greater. Behind them, the stars glittered through the reinforced viewpoint, witness to a transformation neither the Empire nor humanity could have predicted. Each plasma wound a step on the journey from programmed assassin to autonomous ally. Each regret a building block of something genuinely new in the vast expanse of conflict that had defined their existence until now. 17 wounds had changed everything. For both of them,